Welcome to the Workshop Therapy Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew, and joining me today is author, entrepreneur, and speaker, mentor, and a number of other things that you told me in the pre-show, powerlifter, Mr. Ken Miller. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you for the invite. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so this is the worst part about doing it this way, right? Is you have this good conversation going, and then you roll into the actual intro.
We're good.
But we were having a good conversation prior to this, but this is my sneaky way of telling people go listen to, sign up for Patreon to listen to the pre-show. Pre-show is better than the actual show. Anyway, we were talking kind of like shared experiences that we've had in the past, kind of, where you currently live. I'm familiar with the area kind of coincidentally, but in your bio on your website, you said you grew up in Anchorage. Now you're in Washington. You've been in California as well. So why don't you introduce yourself to the audience and kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and your story.
Sure, I appreciate that. So my name is Ken Miller, and I'm 63 years old. I live in Blaine, Washington, about a mile away from the Canadian border, and I have a long and varied story. But I'm gonna give you the 30,000-mile view, 30,000-foot view. So I was born in 1962. My mother was a white teenage runaway. My dad was a black pimp and drug dealer in New York City. And I was put up for adoption at birth. She was a teenage girl. And I went through foster homes for my first 6 years of my existence. And then I was adopted by Irene and Sam Miller. I moved to upstate New York. And then at age 12, I moved to Anchorage, Alaska. So I grew up in Anchorage, Alaska. When I say that, I went to junior high school. I was precocious as a child, and I did very well academically. And I was what they call a National Merit Scholar. I was accepted to Harvard. I went to Dartmouth to get my degree, Ivy League school in New Hampshire. Unfortunately, I graduated with a degree in fraternity with a minor in drinking. And that was how I got out of college after 4 years. I went into the corporate world, did pretty well. I got sober out of college, went to my first treatment center. And after about 2 years, I relapsed, and I was to spend the next 21 years either homeless, in treatment, or incarcerated. I'm a 3-time convicted felon. I've been to prison 3 different occasions. I've spent years behind bars. And then in 2004, I was arrested for my hopefully final felony, and I did 3 years on that charge, which was drug sales. But while I was in there, I made some real powerful decisions and then carried them out. And one was to remain clean and sober, celebrated 21 years clean and sober, September 23rd of 2025, coming up on 22 years. And then also I made some decisions to get quote unquote well mentally and emotionally. And we can talk a little bit more about that if we want to go more in depth, and I'd like to if possible. But let's bring me up to date. I get out in 2007 after doing 3 years with no skills. All I could do was get a job in a warehouse working part-time as an ex-felon, 3-time ex-felon. Uh-huh. And I did that for a while, was fired from that job because they fired all the ex-felons, ex-offenders, we call them. And then I was fortunate enough, this was in Reno, Nevada, I was fortunate enough to move up to Anchorage, Alaska. And I got a job as a development director, which is a fundraiser for a nonprofit. Uh-huh. Fell in love with the field, been in it ever since. And then did that for about 3 or 4 years. Then I put out my own shingle to be a consultant in the fundraising world. And that was the first business I started. I now have a business that works in AI and offshore virtual assistants. I have a business that speaks. I'm a speaker across the country. I have a business that does real estate, and I have a business that does fundraising, coaching, and grant writing. So I own 4 businesses and successful. And this is something I want the listener to hear and understand. I am well. I am well. I am emotionally and mentally well. And I can say it's not ego that says that. It's not hubris that says that. It is a state of self-audit and understanding on how to successfully navigate life with some grace, with some success, and with some ability to also involve external individuals, people, places, and things in a positive manner. And I do that.
Yeah.
And I can speak more to that, but that's where I'm at today. I always want people to understand that. And let me just say one more thing, and we can talk more about wellness, emotional well-being, mental health. I can speak to all those because I've been on both sides of both of those. But the thing about being well and choosing to articulate wellness is that it allows me to not spend all my time working on me. I'm 63 years old. I'm good with good, and I'm good.
Yeah.
So now I can go out and help others. And I do that by coaching, mentoring, and support of my loved ones and you could say strangers. I mentor all over the country. I mentor men all over for free.
Yeah.
And I speak to these subjects from the stage.
But kind of some thoughts that went through my mind while you
Sure.
were talking there. It sounds like your story arc kind of goes from. Are you familiar with Greg McEwen at all?
No, I'm not.
He wrote a couple books, Essentialism, and I always forget the other
I
one.
had that book. I have that book on my shelf.
Oh yeah,
Existentialism. I just
I
haven't read it, but I have that book. It's a white book.
excellent book. It's
Now
it's
that
in
you
the
said
show,
that.
it's in the show notes, and I tell people to read it all the time because it's an excellent book.
Okay.
But he says something that I think he's in his books, and he says it in his podcast fairly often.
Mhm.
He says, if you don't control your time, somebody else will. It sounds to me like your story arc kind of goes from a point of being controlled to a moment where you decided that I'm going to be the one that's in control of my life. And then you move forward from there. Does that kind of sound accurate?
Yes. I'm trying to, picture it from yours. So we've made an analogy or a metaphor as to, like you say, my story arc. We call it a story arc. Most story arcs have a challenge, a concern, or a problem that's being solved for. It's the hero's journey. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And in a way, I have a hero's journey. Even though I try to tell individuals that I work with, don't be the hero or the victim of your story. If anything, be a child of God, just another individual, and don't put that binary, which is victim, hero, as to your story. So there's things I've done that are heroic, and there's things that I have literally been a victim. But those are just a part. I'm not neither one of them as I'm a hero, I'm a victim. Okay. So going back to yours and what you were saying, my control, that's a very interesting concept. And there were times where I would say that I was in control, but actually the drug was in control, or the want to do the drug, the compulsion and obsession to smoke crack cocaine or drink alcohol, because those are my two main vehicles of leaving reality. Because that's all it is. Every drug is the same. Every single drug. It is a substance that allows you to leave reality. That's what literally makes it a drug. It changes your perception of reality. Whether it's alcohol, whether it's aspirin, whether it's heroin, whether it's morphine. Aspirin will change your perception of reality. My reality is I have a headache. My reality is I have pain in my knee. So I'll take Advil or Excedrin or aspirin to change that perception of the pain. Okay? Same thing. So a lot of them, the ones I did were illicit or illegal. But yeah, and that's a very good, because in a way, I've never looked at it that way, because most people will see my story arc as pain. For 1 through 6 was pain. Foster homes are not fun. And it's not, the worst part about it was I knew I didn't have a mother. So for a 4-year-old, that's very, very difficult to try to understand, why don't I have a mother? Why was I thrown away or abandoned? And until I met my biological mother, I always struggled with that. Once I met her, I 100% understand the circumstances of having a mixed child as a 17-year-old Irish girl. It did not happen. It was not very common in 1962. Okay? So I understand. And she thought I got adopted by an Irish couple. Her thing was she wanted me to grow up Catholic. She told me this, 10 years ago when I met her. And she thought because she met the couple that adopted me, and they were a white couple, Catholic. She's a good Irish Catholic. And it even shows in my paperwork I was adopted on October 15th, and then I went back into the system in January of 63 because my tan didn't go away. They didn't know I was black. Okay, I was just a baby. Newborns are weird looking anyway. So anyway, the arc, yeah, a lot of my story is about, man, the word control. Sometimes I feel like I have a negative connotation when it comes to control because I've known individuals who are controlling.
Well, I think more kind of what I was intending to, not so much control. Like you're right. Like control can be a definitely a negative connotation to it. But more like, I guess, self-efficacy or agency,
Yes,
self-agency.
for sure.
Go from
100.
from a point of no agency. You are being pushed. You're being moved. You're being shuffled from home to home. You're being incarcerated. I mean, that's a perfect example of being, have no agency, to a moment of recognition that I can make choices. I can choose to do this or to do that. And therefore I can also then choose the consequences of the outcomes to some extent, or my reactions to the outcomes.
Well, this is deep, but first of all, for the listener, I want to understand what self-efficacy is. So efficacy of self, so there's two components of self-esteem. I teach this. And the two components of self-esteem are self-efficacy, which is competency to life. And then there is one of self-worth and love. Okay? Am I capable of being loved? One, am I capable of making good decisions? Okay? We all have choices. And it's not, choices are quote unquote, I'm not going to get too finite here, but choices is not the problem, it's your decisions. Because decisions have action behind them. Okay? I choose to go to the store. I've decided, meaning I've made a decision with a plan of action to make it to the store. Okay? So I've always had a lot of choices. Where Ken was really, really poor was his decision making. And when you have poor decision making, you do not feel that you are competent to life because the decisions that I make cause discomfort and pain. So therefore I doubt. So yeah, am I competent to life? Do I have efficacy of self? %. There is, I cannot think of a decision that I cannot make today because I've made some hard ones. We make hard decisions as adults. And it's sad when a child has to make a hard decision, but that's a whole nother story. I mean, I've made some hard decisions. I had to make some hard decisions I call profound, sublime decisions in my adulthood and even, unfortunately, in some of my childhood.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of us, I forget who I was reading a paper a few months ago, and it talked about how there's a U shape to life and kind of in general especially with mental health, like as a child you have this complete focus on self and I can do anything. I am I'm invulnerable, I'm invincible, and anything is possible if I put this cape around my neck and I can jump off the roof and fly like Superman, right? Like you start at that point, and then when you make some mistakes and you get beat down, you hit this downward slope until you get to this point in your life where you go, I have no control. Everything's out of control. And then again, as you gain experience and making decisions and making choices, you then begin to climb again up to the point where you recognize, okay, I do have self-efficacy. I am worth because I am. I have value because I have value, not because of my accomplishments, not because of what I own. I am valuable as a person. And at that moment, then you can go, okay, like I have I now, I don't care if you don't like me anymore.
Or that's one of the most important things that I came to an understanding as I matured. So a lot of this is about maturity. And we talking about mental health. Mental health is about maturity. Okay. And a lot of times what I work with is I work with an antithesis. Let's talk about the opposite. What is immaturity? So immaturity, think about how a 3-year-old looks at the world. Number one, they look at everything as me, 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 me. Number two, my time horizon is now. I'm not going to make a decision for when I retire. I'm not even making a decision for 2 weeks from now. I want to eat this now. I have a 2.5-year-old downstairs, grandchild, downstairs. And it's so interesting to observe that. Well, many people who are mature in physical age still make decisions based on self with a short time horizon. By nature, a drug addict, that's what we do. Only thing we're concerned about is the now, me getting high in the near future or present. That's all I'm concerned with. Now, I may plan a day or two ahead to make sure that this happens, but other than that, I'm being very, very immature because it's all about. And then the other thing, it's also one of the things, psychopathy, is that the individual does not have the ability to understand how does my actions affect others. Okay. We call them sociopaths, psychopaths, but that is literally a mental illness that they have that makes them literally an inability to empathize with others, or how they affect, more importantly, how they affect others. So again, I've had to look at a lot of that, work through it, and I have a very, very good understanding, of what I needed to do. And then I try to share that with others and be able to hopefully teach them or share with them or just support them along their journey, because it's a journey.
So what was the moment? Is there one of those like flashbulb moments where you go, oh, I need to do this? What switched for you? Because I mean, repeat offender to, okay, now I'm, I really appreciate how you said, hopefully the last felony,
I don't know. Only God knows my future. So yeah, there's a moment, very specific moment. October of 2004, I got arrested September 22nd, 2004. for sales of a $10 rock of crack cocaine. And when I was arrested, I was crying. I'm on the streets. And I remember the policeman looked at me because they literally have a paddy wagon. And he was worried because I'm crying. And I looked at him and I said very simply, why are you crying? Why are you crying? And I said, because I'm going to live. Because I'm going to live. I can't do the streets. I can't do me on the streets. I will die. I'll commit suicide or someone will kill me. I had 3 people try to kill me on the streets. But I was very suicidal at this point. And I went to prison. Went to jail. Go to jail first and do your time until you can be sentenced. And October, I was sitting on my bunk in Unit 13, Parr Boulevard Jail in Washoe County, Nevada. And I had a conversation with God. And I tell people sometimes, even when I'm talking on a podcast, it's not so much I had a conversation with God. I listened. God had been trying to talk to me for years, but I would not listen. I was not receptive to his message. And I'm picturing it right now. I remember lying down, second floor on this open dorm area, Unit 13. And he said very simply, or this is the gist, I can't remember word for word, but this is literally in my mind. This is not going to be easy. This is not going to be without pain or discomfort. This is real important. But I'll be there. I will be there by your side. This too shall pass. Remain in faith with me, and we will get through everything. And it's been true for 21 years. I've had a wife die. I've had 2 mothers die. I've had financial. I've had physical. I've had a cancer scare. I've dealt with what I call the vicissitudes of life without picking up and or acting out. So that's real important. Andrew, I put people in the hospital. I've hurt people badly. on the streets. I'm not proud of that. I'm not saying that to brag any way, shape, or form, but that's my truth. And I had a defense mechanism when I built up enough pain, emotional pain, that I would lash out on usually innocent people. They had nothing to do with it. It's what happened on the streets a week ago, or the day before, or the person that stole my drugs, or stole my money, or stole my girl, or whatever it may have been. Those are just excuses for me to then try to ameliorate or bring down this amount of emotional pain through hurting others. And again, there's no pride in that. I'm just telling my truth. And so anyway, and I haven't threatened someone in, see, I got sober in '04, '07. Took about a year after I got out of the penitentiary. But I haven't threatened anybody since '08, which is great. And I have not even used profanity at someone probably 10, 12 years. Because what I first do is threaten, and then I would do physical. And there was a time where I didn't even threaten. I just did physical. And I love talking. I talk about that. That's about gap control, how to learn to act instead of react from input.
Well, and I think that's something that I've actually talked about on the podcast a few times is the difference between action and reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes action and reaction are the same thing, but that only comes after you've trained the action. Going back to Greg McKeown's quote about if you don't control your time, somebody else will. We often get just kind of shuffled around with reactions to things. We don't stop and think about our action or the consequences of our reaction. And that's where mindfulness training, when you're doing mindfulness training with mental health, it's really not about, it's not about I'm going to control my emotions, because we have so many inputs coming in from everything all the time, and our subconscious brain is just processing all of that stuff, and our emotions are coming forward as reactions to all of those things. And then we can then choose to act on those emotions and carry out whatever it kicked forward, or we can go, okay, I am not that person. I am not the person who cusses out the guy who just cut me off. I am the person who accepts that I got cut off, and he may be a jerk. He may be in a rush. He may be going to the hospital. But, the old you or the old me, the current me still yells at the guy who cuts me off. But the old reactive person always yells, versus the person who is in control of themselves and has that self-efficacy can then go, does this actually affect me? Does this really, I'm upset that he cut me off, but does it change my life if I get upset at him or benefit me?
I'm writing a book as we speak. I'm writing 3 more, possibly 4 more books this year. And I think it's going to be one of my most important, at least it's one that resonates with me probably the best. I'm writing a book on mentorship. I'm writing one on fundraising. I'm writing one, I'm Good with Good, which I talk about a little later. It's about wellness also. But I'm writing a book on respect and disrespect, that term. See, individuals on the outside think that a lot of the individuals in prison are in prison for violence because of drugs, sex, or money. It's about disrespect. It's about you disrespect me. This is the tool you use to disrespect me. Because respect, the definition I use for respect, is acknowledgement of a person's position or stature within a community. So you have a community of the family. And in my community, we have mad respect. I'm talking about good respect for the matriarch of the family, usually the grandmother. If you talk about the tribe, my wife's Alaska Native. In the tribal world, the respect that you have for your elders is called elders within the tribal world. And because we respect their position or stature within the tribal community or the tribal family or tribal village. I'm from Alaska. My wife's from Alaska too, tribal. And so much of my walk and my understanding, and that's why I'm writing the book, is how do we, because the individual that feels disrespected has his excuse for the reaction. But you can train yourself. You literally, I did it. You can train yourself to not take that slight as disrespect. And I did that because what I found out is I had a problem. I got out of the penitentiary and there's 3 words you cannot use in my world. I'm coming off the world of the streets. Okay? You can't call me a punk. You can't call me an N, especially if you're white. And you can't call me a B. Okay? Automatic. I would fight. I get out of prison. I've done 3 years. I have not seen my nephew in 15 years. He's 18, 19 years old. And we're going up the escalator at Nordstrom's in Anchorage, Alaska. And he turns around to me. He said, "Hey, Unc, were you somebody's little bee in the penitentiary?" And he literally was the first person that I probably have not hit who called me a bee. Okay? I get to the top of the escalator because I'm in shock. Because remember, I've been clean now for 3, 4 years, haven't used any drugs. I'm trying to be well. And I call my brother up and I say, "Hey, Mike Jr. said XYZ. He said, put him on the phone." And I put him on the phone, walked away. A minute later, he comes back, "Hey," because he didn't know. He didn't know because these are like code words. So one of the things when I work with men, what are the words? What are the words that you would fight over? And if there are words, because they're just words, we need to talk and walk that through. Why do you feel that way? Why do you feel that you need to fight if somebody steps on your toe in the club? This is a famous meme. You're in a disco and somebody steps on your foot or bumps you. It's crowded in the disco, but you still want to fight. Again, most of the time we're bringing stuff off the street or off our family or off the world. And why this. So then we have this reaction. This is the key part of it. So what I've learned is that when we react, we're always reacting off a script that we built into ourselves. It's a script, literally. Man, he called me a B. I have to fight because this is what I've been taught or learned in the penitentiary, on the streets, from the family, wherever, in the hood, wherever. It doesn't have to be in a bad neighborhood or a lower economic neighborhood. Many families will teach you that. Many fathers will teach you. You can't let anybody disrespect you, da-da-da-da-da. Okay, so they disrespected you. Now you're going to leave your family. You're going to leave your children, your loved ones, so you can do 5 years in the penitentiary for first-degree assault. It doesn't work. It's not worth it. Believe that. So I'll just go real quick. So what we learn is to take what I call gap control. How do we make a gap between the input and the output? And what we're trying to do is, as quickly as possible, go into God's will. What's the right thing to do for my family and by God? And sometimes, and I've learned this and I've done this, I just have to walk away. I just have to walk away. Sometimes I need that so I can even get into a rational thinking to get away from the emotion. This is what I say to anyone. As long as you don't threaten or hurt my family, and then a couple of people push back on me and they're like, "What if somebody spits in your face?" I say, "Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one." I've had this happen one time only, on a fishing boat up in Alaska. I said, "That's a tough one, but I hope that my relationship with God is strong enough, because that's not threatening my family. That's making me feel less than, making me feel small. But I can go home into my beautiful family, my beautiful wife, my beautiful, grandchildren, and my loved ones without getting into some situation that potentially means that I'm going to hurt you, because I don't fight fair. I just have some experience on street fighting, and also has an opportunity as a 3-time convicted felon with violence on my record to go back." Quick aside, Last time I went up for my felony, Judge Peter Hardesty, he's on the Supreme Court or Superior Court in Nevada now, but he's on the Supreme Court. He was on the Superior Court. This is 2004. He said, Mr. Miller, if you go into my courtroom, if you come into my courtroom again, I am giving you the habitual criminal statute, which is 25 to life for any felony, which means if I stole $50, shoplifted, I was looking at 25 to life on my next felony. And California, I probably would have struck out. I had 3 felonies, but mine were 1 in Washington, 2 in Nevada. So some people say, well, do you believe him? I said, yeah, I still believe him. Yeah. I don't do that behavior, but I still believe. So anyway.
Well, it reminds me of a conversation I had with my son here recently, actually. We were talking about, he was having trouble with a kid at school, kind of egging him on and bugging him. And we kind of went down this route is there's 2 reasons why somebody's bugging you, right? He's either trying to make you mad deliberately because he's a jerk, or he doesn't realize that he's bugging you and he's just trying to be your friend. Like that's really, there's really no other explanations in a broad spectrum.
Right.
And so if you get upset and he's just trying to be your friend, he's going to be confused, and then he's going to get angry and he's going to get defensive, and that's going to be negative. And if he's deliberately bugging you and you get irritated, then he's in control.
Right, he won.
So there is no benefit. I mean, aside from, like you're threatening my family, like I'm going to protect my family, I'm going to protect my house and home. There is no benefit to reacting negatively to anything, because if the person is doing something rude to you, they may not know that they're being rude. And if they do know they're being rude, you reacting is just giving them what they want.
It's difficult for younger individuals to have adult conversations. And what I mean by adult conversations, I can sit down with someone and articulate as a 63-year-old man, this is the way this came across to me. This is the way I felt about it. Did I misunderstand you? Is there some area of friction or conflict between us? I can do that. When I was younger, up to maybe 55, 50, I couldn't have that kind of conversation. Because one of the reasons why is first of all, a lot of times we don't know how to have those conversations. Well, a lot of times we don't understand how to talk about our emotions or how I feel. And then the other thing sometimes is a sense that this makes me look like I'm lesser because I'm coming to them, asking them why they've treated me in such a manner. And, that's maybe too humbling or too ego deflating. There's people in prison for the rest of their life because they could not have that conversation.
Yeah, and I think that's why it is super important to, like you said, develop those skills to have hard conversations and to confront, not confront in a negative way, like, oh, you did this to me, but to get curious, not furious, I guess is a good way to say,
Right.
Like say, I understood that you said this, and this is how I took it. Is that what you meant?
Right.
And if they say yes, you go, okay, I guess you're just a jerk, and we don't have to have this conversation anymore. We're done. But 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, no, that's not what I meant. What I meant was this.
It could be. I don't know what the percentages would be. And, so many times we want to know why. And, when I work with my guys, I tell them I don't answer why questions. I don't answer. I can answer how to. I can answer questions about tactics, strategies for solving, but I don't answer why questions. Why did she leave you? Because she wanted to. Why did you lose your job? Because you did. You know what I'm saying? I don't do a lot of why questions. And this is not original. I remember reading this in some psychologist's book, and I thought it was so good. He said, I don't answer why questions. Usually the only person that knows the answer is, and then even if you get the answer why, does it make a difference as to what is your next steps? Hey, you know why they shot you, but you still need to heal. You still need to deal with the trauma of being shot, okay? And it's interesting because a lot of times people, when you like watch true crime, and I do some true crime shows, I just find that fascinating. People always want to know, why did that person do these horrendous things? And I'm like concerned. I'm more concerned on how do the victims, if they're still with us, get better, or more importantly, so many times there's tangential people connected with the situation. This person was murdered and the family feels this, this, and this. And again, I'll give her another story. My dad came to my mom's job and shot her 6 times. Shot her. And then was coming to shoot me with the same gun, same day, back in 1985. And dealing with that situation, going to Providence Hospital and seeing my mom on a gurney with blood coming through the sheets as she's in pre-op. And the only thing she's worried about is me, because he told her he was going to kill that SOB, Ken, kill me next. Okay, we're only child. We're only child. My brother was a stepbrother on his side of the family. Didn't grow up with my older brother, with the nephews. So anyway, the key thing is, for years, number one, it gave me a great excuse for my addiction. Number two, it allowed me to put up some defense mechanisms that were not, they were inimical to my well-being and those around me. And it allowed me to have, which is one of the worst emotions, which is the emotion of self-pity. Because self-pity says, I do not control my future. I do not have efficacy of self. I do not have agency or intentionality within my own life, because poor me, no matter what I'm going to do. And sometimes we'll blame it on a third party, God, and sometimes we'll just say that's my lot in life. Most of the time we'll just blame it on my lot in life, because we won't even believe in a higher power or a spiritual entity or a God, because we're so anathema to that thinking. Because I may have to do something if I believe. So believe me, I struggled for years, but I got before my father passed away. We could sit down and talk. I mean, we literally did. We sat down and talked. Okay, and the term we use is I forgave him. I had to learn that one too, because one of the key components of forgiveness, if you want forgiveness, you have to forgive. It's a two-way street, and I have forgiven every single person that's hurt me. I harbor no resentment towards any living or dead person. None. And I've had some horrific things happen to me.
And I think that's really important to, with self-efficacy, that is when you're in a situation where you're blaming somebody else, you are giving them power. You're giving them a portion of your self-efficacy. And it may be their fault. But as long as you harbor that resentment or you harbor that anger towards them, you're giving them power over you.
Yeah, so many times what we're doing is we're giving a memory power. We just encapsulate it as person. I do a lot of talking with men all across the country, and one of the things we talk about all the time is memory. There's a great book by Tony Jute called The Memory Chalet. Beautiful book. But when I talk to my guys, I talk about memory is a hallway in a home, and so long it goes into where it's called parallax view, whereas it just goes into a view. You can't even see the end of the hall. And on each side of the hall, and the hall's only 4 feet wide, are doors. And each of those doors has a plaque on it and has a title. Dad left me 2005, was beat up and put in the hospital 2013, but it just has a little plaque. And in that door, if you so choose to open up, there's a memory. And so many times we shut down at the door, because what we're doing, we're shutting down at the emotion. And then if you go into the door, one of the big things that I learned to do, and when I'm working with guys doing this, I say, man, just give me the set pieces. Let's turn on the light, or the sunlight of the spirit, I call it, and just tell me, what are the set pieces? Okay, describe those. And then I want you to describe how you felt. This is hard for people. How did you felt at that time? And even I want to go and even another layer deeper. What was your self-talk? What was your self-talk during and after the incident or this experience?
Uh-huh.
Because then again, so I had this incident and all I had was dad hatred. I shut down at hatred. Had tried no way to understand the situation. All I wanted to do was harbor hatred, which then made it hard for me to even be loving to my mom as she recovered, because she recovered. When she passed away 30 years later, she still had 2 bullets in her, okay, but she recovered, okay? And again, we were talking about that. She never recovered emotionally ever to the extent before the shooting, ever. And for years, I didn't recover either. I am now, again, I am well. I'm well. I have that memory. I've been in that room. I turned the lights on. I can name all the set pieces and I understand how I felt and also my self-talk. Because my predominant self-talk is I wasn't there. I knew about the gun. I could have grabbed the gun 3 days before. And when I went to my dad's apartment and I saw the gun and he was suicidal, I should have grabbed it then, but I didn't. But anyway, so now I have blame.
Uh-huh.
That's another emotion that is a tough one on your self-esteem. But again, so much of that is so ego-driven. It's all about me. And when you get God-centered, I know we don't talk a lot about that here, but when you get God-centered, it takes me out all about me. I'm just a mere child of God on this earth, 7 billion. And to be humble enough to understand that my journey is to do God's will, which is the next indicated correct. And we put a capital C on that correct thing to do. That's God's will.
Yeah, and I think kind of to maybe start wrapping this conversation up. I think what we need to move from this position of people reauthor our narrative, right? Because we have this idea of like you said, self-blame is incredibly powerful because I should have, and we get stuck into that I should have, and this goes from like I should have grabbed that gun to prevent my dad from shooting my mom to I made a mistake in my shop. I should have, I should have measured this better. Like we get paralyzed by these should haves when well, you didn't. And what do you do from this point moving forward is what's important, because no amount of looking back at the mistake is going to change the mistake. But whether you're moving forward from here, okay, like that now I've recognized this mistake, and I know in your case, I know now that the next right thing is God's will for me, or for those who don't believe in God, the next thing that is very rarely the next right thing is very rarely an us-focused thing. It's usually a community. It's usually how can I make the world a better place? And whether you're coming at from a God perspective or from a secular perspective, we need to switch out of that I should have to, okay, what is the next correct thing for me to do?
And we don't have to do that often. I tell people this all the time. 98%, 99% of the time, my will is in alignment with God's will. There's congruence. I, by habit, do the right thing. We had a meeting today. I was here on time. That's the right thing to do. That's not respect you, respect the listener's time, whatever. 1% of the time, I need that gap for me to pray for 2 things. Identify, God, what is the next indicated correct thing for me to do? What is your will? And then give me the courage to do it. Because when I do my will in opposition to God's will, it's because of 2 things. I'm seeking pleasure or I'm trying to put off pain or discomfort. Why? Okay. And believe me, I've had some conversations with Ken, internal to Ken. And I'm like, oh, man, I don't really want to do that because I'd rather do something that would give me less discomfort, but it's the best for my family. It's the best for my children, my grandchildren. It's best by God. So therefore I will. What is the byproduct? Is, as you can see, I'm very comfortable in me. I'm very comfortable in me. Okay. I'm not in this adversarial relationship with self. And it's a beautiful place to be. Remember, I'm well. I'm cool with that. And this is another one. I know we're getting ready to wrap up, but I really want the listener to hear this. I'm writing a book about it later on this year. But I'm good with good. I don't need to be great. Good and very good is fine with me. Because for me to be great, I have to allocate my resources to be great. That I'd rather spend with my wife, my children, my grandchildren, my mother-in-law who's 90 years old, who's downstairs. I'd rather take that capacity, be good as a speaker, be good as an author, be good as a teacher, a mentor, a consultant, than be great, because I can put the time in to be better or be great. But I'm cool. I'm good with good. It's a beautiful place to be.
It's kind of similar to the idea of don't let perfect be the enemy of complete.
Perfect is a level above great, okay? And there's only one thing I know that's perfect, and I think we might agree on that one. I'll never be there. I'll never be that, but there is perfection in my life, and that I have a God that's perfect. That's just, again, me speaking, right?
Yeah.
So I'm good there, but like I said, that next level even being great. Because what happened was, it wasn't bad, but Collins put this series of books out, Good to Great, Good to Great, okay, in a bunch of different areas. And I was a big advocate of that. And as I've gotten older and more mature, and there's also there's a term we use called discernment, the ability to discern, which is even higher level than maturity. I've gotten to understand that I don't need to be great. And I think many people are doing themselves a disservice attempting to be great. Be good and give out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Didn't get into what we were going to talk about at all, but I think it was
great though.
well worth the discussion. Maybe what I'll do is I'll do this as the like go sign up for Patreon plug to support the show. I'll ask you a few questions about kind of like your business development process.
Sure.
In the post show, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, I'm limited on time, so
we'll wrap up pretty quick here. Okay. But I think thank you for coming on. Tell people where they can find you. Any social medias you like to use, what books you want to plug, anything like that.
Sure. You can find me on LinkedIn. Ken Miller 84 is my handle. You can also see my latest book, Becoming Ken, is on Amazon and also Audible. And then if you so desire, you can always email me at ken@kenmillerspeaks.com.
Sounds good. Thanks for coming on, Ken. With that, I'd like to thank everybody who supports the show. Any questions or things that you want to have answers to in the realm of the show, send a question to questions@workshoptherapypodcast.com, and let's head over to the after show.